Welcome to Playing Above the Line's very first mini-series. I'm Alan, your host, and this episode is one of 10 we're recording with T.R. Miller's legendary football coach, Jamie Riggs. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. This episode is sponsored by our hometown company, Provalis. As an employer of hundreds of local residents, Provalis hires undiscovered talent for jobs in customer service, help desk, cybersecurity, quality assurance, and other IT services for its clients. If you'd like to apply for an opportunity to get trained for a career in technology, visit the website at www.provalis.com/apply or stop into the facility at 219 Belleville Avenue, Bruton. No experience is necessary, just an aptitude to learn. Apply today.
I'm kind of a historical person. I always liked history, and I like the details of history. And so many times I will run up on something that turns my mind a little bit, and I remember something. And so in this case, I saw the band Chicago on TV one night, and I started thinking about this and remembering a little bit about one of their songs. And so I sat down, and this was after I had retired. I sat down and I wrote this one, and it's called Beginnings.
Miller is rich with tradition, but I think that if you ask anybody who's been through Miller in the last 40, 50, 60 years, what's one thing that you remember that the band always played on a Friday night, and they'll say Beginnings, because I don't care what new music came and went, Beginnings has been a mainstay for the T.R. Miller Band for years and years, and I think it's just a great tradition. One
of the things I liked about what Johnny Folsom did in those days is he did a great job of taking a lot of the traditional songs and keeping them. They used to play the horse all the time and stuff. So he would keep a lot of those traditional songs, but he would also keep you up with some of the latest stuff, and you would hear something that was pretty current. But I appreciate the fact that he liked those traditional songs, and he understood that they were important to people, and when people went to the games, they wanted to hear these.
Yeah, absolutely.
This story is from 2013 playoffs, November 22nd, 2013. T.R. Miller went to Birmingham to play Leeds in the third round of the playoffs, and this one's called Beginnings. I originally saw the musical group Chicago perform on some kind of concert special on TV. They were very big in the music world for parts of 3 decades. Chicago was known originally for their brass sound in the late 60s, and later for some wonderful ballads they did throughout the 70s and 80s. As I watched, I waited very patiently from one of their great hits to another, in hopes that they would play my favorite Chicago tune. Finally, my patience was rewarded as I heard the first few notes, the unmistakable sound of the song Beginnings. Strangely enough, this is my favorite Chicago song, but it is someone else's version of this early 70s hit that will always be etched into my memory. When I was in high school at T.R. Miller back in the early 70s, Beginnings had already become everyone's favorite song played by the T.R. Miller Band at football games. If the Tiger Band was in a parade, you could count on hearing it played as well. Band music is a critical part of the high school football game. As a player, the music always seemed to send a little extra adrenaline through me. My motivation to excel on the next play seemed to be a little greater, and my fatigue seemed to be not quite as great. High school football has to have the band because it is the band that brings the music. During the first 10 years of my tenure as head coach at T.R. Miller, our band director was Johnny Folsom. He was a true professional in every sense of the word. Johnny's bands had great organization throughout the program. He was a great teacher of music. He commanded everyone's attention, and the T.R. Miller Band showed great respect for him and his work. We won numerous awards in every event our band participated in. Halftime shows, parades, concerts, pep rallies, everything was first class. We had tremendous participation in the band in those days. By the time you took all the football players and band members out of the student body, there wasn't a whole lot left. During those 10 years, Johnny's band always played Beginnings at the football games. It seemed like they saved it for the fourth quarter. I got the feeling that Johnny would send me messages during the game by playing the song. When we had a nice lead in the fourth quarter, Beginnings meant it was time to put the substitutes in the game. When the other team was about to score to go ahead, the band would fire up Beginnings, and we would rise up and stop them. When protecting a lead late in the game, Johnny would signal everyone in the stadium that the clock didn't have enough time on it for our opponent to come back by blasting this great song. One Friday, we had a small lead on the road, and the other team was driving late in the game. It was one of those small, tight stadiums. Both crowds were into the game. You could just feel that we had to stop them now or we would lose. I was very frustrated with our inability to slow their offense as they marched towards our goal line. One of our players shouted just behind me, "We've got to stop them." So I said, in a very sarcastic manner as us head coaches can do at times, "Looks like the only chance for us to keep them from scoring is for the band to play." Now, the best friend a coach can have is often a trusty manager. Had a great one in our manager emeritus, Andrew Zeke Johnson. As I finished with my sarcastic statement, I saw Zeke head down the sideline as fast as his legs would take him. He ran down in front of the band and screamed as loudly as he could, "He says the band needs to play." Only Johnny Folsom could understand the scream of a manager gone crazy in the last minutes of a high school football contest. Only Johnny Folsom could interpret who the he was that Zeke was referring to. Within seconds, the band struck up beginnings. Looking back on it, I'm certain that Johnny knew it would be a close game to the end, and he saved that song just in case we'd need it to win in the last minutes of the fourth quarter. And apparently, we needed it. About that time, a linebacker interrupted the chorus of the song as he blitzed through and struck a lick that separated the runner from the ball. When we recovered, Beginnings had secured one more victory for good old T.R. Miller. With all due respect to the great group Chicago, their original version will never hold a candle to the old T.R. Miller band arrangement. I listen to mostly oldies stations on the radio these days. I like the songs of the 60s and 70s when I can get them. Sometimes I will hear those first few notes of this great song. When I hear it, I can't help but think of touchdown passes, goal line stands, Johnny Folsom, and trusty managers that understood the importance of the greatest high school football band music of all time. T.R. Miller would lose that night to Leeds 24-20 to end the 2013 season.
Well, Coach, as a former member of the T.R. Miller Band, that particular story does hold a special place in my heart. But you mentioned two really legends, as are you, in T.R. Miller history, and that is Johnny Folsom, who was a band director for a number of years, and then Zeke Johnson, who, Zeke has been around as long as I can remember and just really an integral part of what makes Miller. So speaking of Johnny Folsom, I always appreciated your appreciation for the band, because I think a lot of times high school football coaches especially overlook, I think, the importance of the band. But I agree with you. Without that component and the cheerleaders, everything that goes into making a Friday night in a high school football stadium, it's just not the same experience.
No, and I think it helped me, having been from Bruton, played for T.R. Miller, and I understood some of those things. Mm-hmm. I understood the importance of everyone and what it did for me as far as helping me be a better player. And the music and the band was a huge part of that. Yeah. And literally, they're the ones that bring the music. I don't know how you can have high school football without the music. I remember one time back several years ago, we had some instance, something happened, and we were going off to play some team, wasn't very good, way off somewhere, and we made the decision we weren't going to take the band. And I really threw a fit. I really did. I threw a fit. And it was just so important, to the whole aspect of that we represented our school and our community when we went. The band was just really important. And I really appreciated Johnny. And we had some good band directors down through the years. But I really appreciated him because literally he was first class. Everything he did was professional. It was done right. And we got along great because I think part of that had to do is I understood what his job was. He understood my job. Right. And I understood how important he was to our success in football. Right. And I really believe that. And so what was funny, a lot of times, a lot of my coaches would fuss about the band. Usually it was about the band's practice on the football field. They're stomping holes in the field, and I'm like, guys, It's okay. The grass will come back. It'll be okay. But we need them to play that music on Friday night. So it was a good deal. But Johnny was great. He was tremendous, not only band director, but just a really tremendous person, and truly was first class in everything he did.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying is you had a mutual respect, and nothing could. I mean, the magic that was T.R. Miller football back in the 80s and 90s, especially, couldn't have taken place without all the components. And I think the fact that you both understood that is really kind of what was part of that secret sauce back in those glory days.
And Alan, in my last years, I actually got the opportunity a couple of times. The band director actually, Carl Major and some of those guys actually asked me to come speak to the band. And a couple of times I got to go back and speak to the band, during fall before the game started and everything. And, I just thanked them, and I wanted them to understand that we have to have music.
Yeah.
And you bring the music. So y'all be good all the time, and they were.
Yeah. Zeke Johnson, I mean, we could have a whole episode on Zeke, but I mean, can you, and I really can't put it into words, but I mean, can you try to put into words what Zeke has meant to not only the football team, but Miller over the years? I mean, he's an institution.
Yeah, he really is, and more than anything else, in one sense, he is T.R. Miller. Yeah. He's what it was about. I can't tell you the number of places that I've been, and somebody would say, "Hey, Coach, I hadn't seen you in a long time. How's Zeke?"
Yeah,
because they remember Zeke, and I've had a great friendship with Zeke really since the early '70s. He is a very special person, and we all love and care for him. But he did a lot of work for us, a lot of things, and he knew all the traditions. He knew all the people. If you were talking about something about T.R. Miller, and you had Zeke and myself in the room, you pretty much going to cover it for a long time. And Zeke knew a lot of people. And Zeke was the one who was always telling me what was going on.
Yeah.
He could tell me what was going on with the players. If I got a player who's got a problem or whatever his issue is, I'd say, "Zeke, what's wrong with so-and-so?" And Zeke would say, "It's that girl. That's what's wrong with him." He could tell me that. We've had a lot of fun down through the years with Zeke, and he's just been great for T.R. Miller.
Well, I will say this about Zeke. He is famous for his ability to throw a rock. And so David Jennings always said that he is the only person that he knew that could throw a rock around a corner and hit somebody on the other side of the building.
He absolutely could. He was something when it came to doing that. He was something else.
That's great. Two legends of T.R. Miller history. Thanks for bringing them up. I appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.